Hello students, welcome back. In today's class, we're going to start talking about openings. We have already discussed end games, middle games, and now we have to dedicate some time to the opening, the first part of the game. And I wanted to start by addressing the position that comes out of e4, e5, knight f3. We have already learned how this is very popular, very common, and you can see people playing this at all levels, beginners, intermediate, top players. But then there are different ways that the black pieces could respond here. We're attacking the pawn, and before we get into the main openings, I wanted to tell you what not to do. And if you're the black pieces and you do f6, this could get you in a lot of trouble because of a move like knight takes e5. So this sacrifice could start a forcing variation to either leave the black pieces in an inferior position or to just get checkmate if they don't know what they're doing. So you could look at it like, okay, things not to do, or it's good also that you know what to do if the white pieces and the black pieces make this mistake. So you're going to see exactly how to get them in trouble. But then also you're going to see in this video how to attack the king in the center. Once you start and you get the opportunity, what ideas to follow to make it easier for you to attack that king. So again, I'm going to go back. You're going to see in future lessons how we're going to talk about openings coming out of knight c6, which is one of the most popular ones, also pawn to d6, and even knight f6. But if they do f6, then we're going to do knight e5. Now, at first it looks like a weird move because we're taking a pawn and they're going to take the knight, but it's possible because by pushing the f pawn, we're opening this diagonal, and that allows us to create some tactics and some direct attacks on the king. So after we take, if the black piece is taken, that's what most people might be concerned with, we have a very strong check on h5. And we've talked how the queen doesn't come out until later. We develop the minor pieces first. But in this case, if we calculate and we see that it's something concrete, then we should go for it. Now, it's true that the black pieces could just not take the knight, but in that case, not only they lost the pawn already, but if they did something like pawn to d6, well, queen h5 is coming anyways. Queen h5 check, and they have only two options. This is a forcing variation. They could either move the king up, and now I challenge you to stop the video and see if you can find checkmate in one move. So if you did, the move that delivers checkmate is actually queen f7. Queen f7, checkmate. Or they could also have gone pawn to g6, and then we have a very thematic move. Whenever this happens, we have knight g6. We get another pawn. They cannot take the knight because it's pinned. So if they take the knight, you get a free rook. And this doesn't only happen in this out of these moves, guys. In many positions, when you have this check on h5 and the knight is on e5 and they do g6, you should automatically think of, hey, what if I take on g6 because we have this pin. So that happens if they do not take. If they take, then we have queen h5 check. But let's calculate, and remember, as we get stronger, we need to be able to do this in our head. So let's calculate what happens if we go queen h5. That's why I'm not moving the queen now. I will, but not yet. So queen h5 check, then what could the black pieces do? They could, again, block, or they could move the king up. So if they block with the pawn, then we have a very nice fork. We take on e5, check, and then we get the rook. So that in itself justifies the sacrifice we did with the knight. But what if they go up? Well, if they go king e7, that king is going to be in the center, unable to castle, and we're going to be able to continue to attack him and put him in checkmate. So let me show you what we have been discussing so far. So queen h5 check. If they block, then automatically we get another pawn, and then we're going to go for the rook. So it doesn't matter how they block, we're gonna get that rook for free. If they move the king up, then the queen could take again. And now notice how the black pieces cannot come and defend the king. The king has to continue to move. And after king f7, this is the only move. And notice how all of this has been forcing, and that's the key word. We're forcing them to move the king, and they cannot develop any of their pieces. And that's going to be my next point, guys. If I get to this position, I'm attacking the king, I want to do it without allowing them to develop more pieces. If I did something slow here, like I see this king here, my queen needs helpers, but I need to bring a helper that could come in with a check ideally, because it's a forced move. It will not allow them to do whatever they want. Like right now I'm thinking, oh, what if I could bring my rook to f3? Like maybe I could do pawn h4, then bring my rook up, and then to f3. Well, that would be a very strong plan maybe, but it takes too long. The moment I do something like h4, they could bring the queen out. And that's it. This king is going to be protected by his pieces. So I need something stronger, faster. And the question is, which of the white pieces could come with a check? Well, he's on the light square. The light square bishop is going to do it. So bishop c4. And now, again, he's forced to do one of two things. Either he goes to g6, or he could block with the pawn. Now, this actually happened in a game, and in that game, the king just went to g6. If they had done something like d5, well, the bishop just takes it. He's protected by the pawn, by the queen, and at this point, if this bishop blocks, then we have checkmate. Let me go back. In this game, they just went king g6, and now we're going to continue to attack the king. Now, something to keep in mind here, this king already got ahead of his pawns. He's ahead of all of his pieces. That's a horrible pattern. Whenever you see the king out there, we know we have chances to attack the king, especially when we have so many pieces on the board. So the next move here is to go queen f5. We're using the help of the pawn to do queen f5. And then again is forced to go only to h6. None of these pieces could do anything to come out. We're not giving him time to develop and defend the king. And now look, that king is cornered, but more importantly, he's on the same diagonal as the dark square bishop. So we're going to do a discover check, and we learned this a few classes ago. So we just move the pawn to d4, and one more time he's forced to do only a few moves. So if he goes queen g5, then we have checkmate by taking with our queen. The other thing he could do is block with the pawn. And now we cannot take on g5, because if we just take, well, then his queen comes over and he's safe. So instead, the white pieces have a different resource. We have a pin, we already know what a pin is. So we're going to take advantage of that pinned pawn, and we're going to try to open this rook. The king is already on the same file as my rook. The only thing in the way is this pawn. If I could, I would just get rid of this pawn if I could, but I can't. So I'm going to push up, and now I'm threatening to just take this pawn and open the rook at the same time. And honestly, guys, there's not much they could do. So the black king, they know he's in trouble. They move the king back to g7, trying to get away from this file. And now we have checkmate in 2 moves. So pause the video if you want, try to find it, and we're going to go over in a moment. Here, it's time for the bishop and the queen to work together, and we're going to try to bring this king back onto this file. So the move is queen f7, the queen is protected by the bishop. Only move is to go h6, and now we have checkmate in 1 move. If you didn't find the checkmate in 2 moves, pause the video now, see if you can find checkmate in 1 move. The move here, like I said, it's all about opening up the rook, but even better, that comes with a double check. So we're attacking with the rook, we're attacking with the pawn, the king cannot go anywhere, and that is checkmate. Now the key, guys, is that this happened for the most part forced. It was a forced variation. None of the black pieces had the time to come out and help the king. Feel free to go back and review this video as many times as you need. This is not only a good example of how to attack the king when he's in the center. You see, we bring more pieces to attack the king, and we try to incorporate as many helpers as we need. But also, ultimately, it shows you how, now when we start learning more about openings, you're going to know why f6 is not one of the top candidates. I hope you guys enjoyed this game, and I hope you go back all over and review it one more time, because there's a lot to learn from it. It's simple, straightforward, it's a very short game, but it's definitely something for you to learn. I'll see you next class, and we're going to continue talking about a different opening.